We are live. Hello, Elisa Meredith here with Christine Gritmon. Hello,
Hi.
Christine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, and you are looking lovely with your signature red, as always.
Thank you. I'm sitting here just like sharing the Facebook link. I'm not just, texting my friends here. Don't worry.
Not just random, not just totally not paying attention. So I have a question, a quick one. Is every wall in your house that color?
No, oddly, okay, so my last house, before I even had my company, red was already my favorite color. And so my last house, the den, like TV room, was red, and it was beautiful. In this house, which we moved into about 3 years ago, none of the walls are red, though my little office space, which is a weird little just room in the attic cobbled together out of beadboard a very long time ago. I have the red curtain behind me, obviously. So red on the red carpet on the floor. I have like a red wall hanging thing. So I'm just kind of surrounding myself. But no, I don't have any red walls at the moment.
Okay, not yet. Okay.
It's a problem.
Well, one that you can fix, I'm sure. So I need to introduce you in case you don't know Christine. You should. Well, I think that's why I skipped it. I'm sorry. But I just assumed that people
the whole
would
reason
know.
We do other people's shows is because there's totally people who don't know me. So this is great. I'm glad to be introduced to your people.
Wonderful. Well, Christine is a personal branding coach and a social media trainer, and she's all about the brand. So we were talking about her various hashtags earlier. Her website, if you want to check her out, is gritmon.com. Am I pronouncing that right?
Just Gritmon.
Gritmon, okay.
And my husband actually owned that domain before I came along, and he used to run his own business, and he used it, but that ended a very long time ago, so it's mine now.
Excellent. I think that's great. And then you have a Tuesday Twitter show with a hashtag chat about brand. What is that about?
It's about brand.
Is it?
And I'm very excited because I always take an August hiatus from both my Twitter chat, which is on Tuesdays, Chat About Brand, and my companion live stream show, which is on Fridays, called Let's Talk About Brand. It's the same topic every week. The Twitter chat happens on Tuesday and we discuss the topic. And then on Friday, I do a live interview with a guest expert on that specific topic. And it's coming back next week. I always take August off, and season 2 starts next week. And I'm so excited. I really missed it. And I've been amping things up for season 2. It's definitely going to be bigger and better.
Ooh, really? So do you have your guests lined up, or is it a secret?
I do. I have actually guests lined up through the end of November, which is very exciting.
Really?
I'm really on it this season somehow.
I'm very impressed. So if they wanted to find that live show, the link to that, would they go to gritmon.com, or is there a better place?
So I'm actually going to start doing what you did with the cgritmon.live or something like that. But at the moment, so the Twitter chat is just on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is cgritmon.
Okay.
And then the live stream, it's almost going to be hard not to find it because I'm super multi-streaming. This past season, it was Facebook and Twitter. This coming season, it is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn Live, and Amazon Live, which is brand new for me. So just try not to find it. I dare you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You can't help it. Okay. Well, we are really excited to talk about what personal brand is, who needs one, why, what goes into it, what you need to figure out, all of the brand questions. So, I have a ton of questions, as always. I usually have too many, but it's fun. But I promise, if you in the audience would like to ask a question, please do. I will bring it up. Your questions are more important than mine, so you're going to get priority here. And if you know somebody who should be on this show, please go ahead and let them know about it. Like Christine was alluding to, I bought the domain elisameredith.live, and that will get you to all the shows. Jeff C made me do it, so I had to. I had no choice. Okay.
I know. I mean, he's an influencer, so he's very influential.
He really is. He is, or he bugs me if I don't do it, so I have to.
He twirls his mustache at you.
He does. Give me that look. Yeah.
Previously.
Yes. So, Christine, why should we build a personal brand?
Well, first of all, you have one already. Whether you have taken ownership of it or not, whether you are having any hand in controlling it or not, you have a personal brand already, simply because a personal brand, as I like to define it, is the version of you that lives in other people's heads. So if you've met a human, if you've engaged with the human, even just online, any of that, there hopefully is a version of you that lives somewhere in their head, possibly like the back of their minds, but hopefully, especially for those of us in business, a little further up in their brain, a little closer to the surface there. And the reason why we should take control of that is because don't you want to have some say in what other people think about you? And the way to do that is to give them that information, to kind of feed them what they should be thinking about you, and to demonstrate that with everything that you do.
Okay. All right. So what have you seen a personal brand do for people? So I kind of tease that, having a personal brand so that you control, can be the difference between getting a client or losing out to somebody else, or getting a job offer or being passed over. What else have you seen a strong personal brand do for people? I just want us to all get really bought into this and invested in this concept.
Well, there's a couple things there to unpack. So first of all, a lot of people know that it requires a certain number of brand touches before someone makes a purchasing decision. I actually had my very research-oriented father look into this for me, because people say it would take 7 brand touches. Oh, but now it takes 52 brand touches because there's so much noise out there. And I wanted to know where the statistic came from. And it turns out it's nonsense. But
is it? Okay. Oh, what is true anymore?
But it's still true. There's a core truth to it. That's why it gets repeated so often. The core truth to it is the fact that you have to develop, to paraphrase Bob Berg, which I do every single day, you have to get to that know, like, and trust factor. So familiarity means people feel like they know you. They've seen you before. They have already experienced a brand touch. The like is they like you. Recognizing you and liking you are 2 very different things.
That is so true.
And
yes.
Then the next huge hurdle to jump, and the most important one, is trust. If they feel like they know you, and then they feel like they like you, they can like you without quite trusting you. You can be appealing without necessarily holding authority in someone's mind or influence. And so that's where the trust goes. And the way the multiple touches comes into play here is, first of all, it's built, of course. But if you don't have a recognizable, unique personal brand, and people don't remember that they've seen you before, that's not 1 touch plus 1 touch plus 1 touch plus 1 touch. If they forget you every time, those touches are not adding up. It's one here. It's one here. You're starting from scratch every time. And so that's why making sure that you kind of know the things about you that are going to be unique, that are going to be recognizable, knowing them and making sure that you embrace those ensures that those brand touches will compound and will grow the know, like, and trust factor, instead of just kind of leaving people's minds immediately.
Okay. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I just want to say hi to a couple of friends here. We have
Deb is here. We knew she would be. Hi, Deb.
Here. Wonderful.
Hi, Brian.
We got Brian. Poor Brian is stuck in Barcelona. Oh, so sad. So sad. We have Jana is here.
Hi, Jana.
She's a great friend over here. And Holly's from Halifax. Halifax,
Hi, Holly.
What a beautiful place to be. And of course, Deborah was laughing at you and debunking the whole 7 points of contact thing.
I mean, I'm like, people quote this constantly. I need to know where it's from. Just like the know, like, trust thing. People say that all the time. I had to find out where it was from. I like having sourcing for my quotes.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, especially if you're going to keep using them. Yeah. So Deborah points out consistency is personal brand for know, like, trust. Absolutely.
Yes, that's how the trust really comes in, because because if people see you showing up consistently in the same way, it means that you're more likely to be legitimate. I mean, if you keep showing up over and over and over, and you're faking it, those cracks are gonna emerge at some point. So if you just keep it real all the time and show up in front of your audience as much as possible as that same you, Eventually they're going to be like, you know what? This can't be an act. No one has that much time.
You can't keep it up that long, right?
No, who has the energy to fake it? Please. It takes all my energy just to be myself.
Right? Yes, absolutely. So something that you said a minute ago really caught my attention. You said figuring out what that unique thing about you is, right? And using that to build your brand. So how do you find that? Because I think it's really hard to evaluate yourself sometimes.
Yes. And I think you use two really important words there, which are find and evaluate. A lot of people feel like their personal brand is this persona that they invent. That's not going to work as well for you. You need to look at what other people notice about you. You know, when a friend of yours in real life sees something in a shop and is like, oh my God, that is so you. What are some elements of that thing? What do people say about you to other people if you're able to be somewhat privy to that information? Other people often have a better view of that stuff than we do. I did a group workshop with a bunch of realtors who were in the same brokerage, and they're friends. It's basically a whole bunch of friends.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
And so I was kind of going person by person, being like, okay, so what's your thing? And they're like, I don't know. I help everyone with everything. And I'm like, no. And then the people in the room were like, what are you talking about? You and your husband flip old houses. They're like, yeah, but I mean, that doesn't relate to what I do. I'm like, are you kidding me? People who are looking at a fixer-upper with you need to know that you know what's realistic. Like, that's a huge advantage. The fact that you can sell, some empty nesters a brand new condo doesn't change the fact that the, young 20-somethings who feel like getting out their power tools, they need to find you because you are going to be able to help them avoid a big mistake.
Yes.
So
that's a great point.
So a lot of times people see those things more than we see them ourselves because we're just living. And I feel like it's kind of human nature to kind of discount. So maybe
for
it's
sure.
Me, but to discount
no. I think we all do. Right. We all think, anyone can do that.
Especially women.
Right? It's not that special. Anyone can do that. Right.
Yeah. And one really big thing, and this is something I've grappled with the entire time I've been in business. I'm getting to a really good place with it now. But at the beginning, the concept of, but this is easy.
Yeah.
The fact that it's easy for you, first of all, doesn't mean it's easy for other people. And second of all, it's probably easy for you because you're good at it. Right. So recognizing that your perspective, your experience is not everyone's perspective, is not everyone's experience, and that your perspective and experience are likely to be valuable to somebody else is incredibly key and really essential to figuring out what you're going to put out there. Because when it comes down to it, personal branding, people feel like it's show-offy, it's braggy, they feel like it's almost selfish to put your personal brand out there. It's the opposite if you're doing it right. It comes from a place of, I want to help people and they need to be able to find me. Yeah.
That's a really great point. So do you think that it could be effective to ask your friends, family, coworkers? Yeah.
It absolutely can. You can ask them directly, but also keep your ears open. A lot of times we ignore the good things people are saying about us. We hear the bad things more loudly than the good things. Listen for the good things. Have your good thing ears on and listen to what good things people are saying about you. And Deb, oh my God, imposter syndrome. Heck yes. Amber Naslund is a great person to look up about that. Amber Cadabra on Twitter, because she is writing a book about imposter syndrome.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's actually evolving into a book about workplace trauma, because a lot of us, our imposter syndrome is either, originated or confirmed by bad work experiences and toxic bosses and things like that. Yeah. And so that's a huge thing. You have to get over your imposter syndrome because it's not serving you, but more importantly, it is blocking you from serving other people. And that is selfish.
That's a good point.
Get over yourself, people.
Get over yourself. Okay.
Get over yourself. People need you. Buck up.
Yeah, that's right. Show up for them. Okay. Yeah. Can you give me some examples of people who have built a strong personal brand and what it's done for them?
What it's done for them is tricky, but let's see. I would say one of them is my friend Alexa Heinrich.
Okay.
She is cool. Hashtag Hey Alexa. She is someone where so she cares a lot about digital accessibility. She cares a lot about making sure that people don't use weird characters that can't be read by screen readers. She cares a lot about captioned videos, alt text for images. She cares a lot about those practices. And she realized at a certain point when she was digging into that information for herself, for her own job as a social media manager, she's a social media manager for a college. She realized, while I'm doing this research for myself and to do my job better and to, be a better person, why not share this knowledge? And the more she started to share it, the more she realized how little people knew. So she wasn't developing a person. She didn't go into this saying, I'm going to develop a personal brand. She had a passion.
Yeah.
She realized it could help people. She put it out there and shared it. And through that, now people not only know who she is, they go to her as an expert. She's getting speaking gigs. She's guest blogging. She's being interviewed. She's doing all sorts of great stuff. And this wasn't something she sought out. She didn't say, I'm going to have a plan to, develop a speaking career or whatever. I mean, it's still early days. She has a job. She's happy at her job. But the fact is, it has established her as an authority and a sought after authority in this field. And she'll be the first one to tell you that there are bigger authorities in the field than she is. Something about her delivery of the information is just resonating with people. So she's doing it. Another good example, someone else who has a job at a college, my friend Brianne 2K on Twitter, who runs Pop Chat, Brianne Fleming. She is she's a professor of marketing, and she, as so many of us do, early in her career, she bought into the whole I have to fit in and kind of suppress the silly things of my personality in order to be taken seriously as a professional. Okay. And then at some point she realized that was nonsense. I feel like in a lot of cases you realize it's nonsense once you reach a point of professional accomplishment where you're like, okay, my results speak for themselves.
Yeah, I don't have to prove myself every minute. Yeah.
And she loves 90s pop culture, lots of pop culture in general, current pop culture too. But her sweet spot is the 90s. She was a 90s kid, and boy bands. She's very into the Backstreet Boys, things like Britney, things like that. She said, first of all, pop culture is marketing. It is. I mean, that's what we're buying into. It's not necessarily the best singer who wins. It's the best marketed singer. She realized there are marketing lessons here. Why don't I combine my passions? And so her personal brand is about drawing those marketing lessons out of pop culture. It makes it super accessible because it's something that we all have some sort of touch point to. Yeah. She leads a Twitter chat on Fridays called Pop Chat. It's really fun.
Okay.
And it's all about drawing the marketing lessons out of things that are going on in pop culture right now. She also has a newsletter that does the same thing in a brilliant way. And she's just fantastic. And she has a whole following now who are people who just resonate with her message. And the thing about both Brianne and Alexa that I want to mention is that they started from a place of passion. Yes. And then they moved to a place of sharing that passion and of helping people with it. In Alexa's case, it's accessibility. In Brianne's case, it's actually getting the marketing lessons out of these things we're all enjoying. And so this is what has resulted in opportunities from people who want to hear more from them because they put themselves out there as their real selves, as their whole selves with their own style. And it resonated with people. That's really key. You need to put yourself out there because if you're just kind of being bland and dulling all your, edges and curves and all those cool things about you, if you're dulling that to fit in, people aren't going to resonate with you because you're not even going to register.
Yeah, it's a good point. And something about both the people that you mentioned is that their thing is very narrow. Right. And it's not trying to do everything. So they're not trying to make a personal brand of social media.
You know what to associate with them.
Yeah, it's very specific. And even with the first example, you said, there might be people who are better at accessibility or more knowledgeable about it. But that doesn't mean that she shouldn't do it, because her personality is going to bring in a different type of person.
The way I look at it, and I had this realization about myself years ago when I was first grappling with the kind of being so out there on social media and those ideas of, is it selfish? Is it shallow? Blah, blah, blah. I realized a few years ago that my purpose is to shine a big shiny light on great things other people are doing.
Nice.
And that's how I use the light that is shown on me. If I can get attention, if I happen to have that gift, I'm better able to shine a light on other people, because if people are looking, I can say, hey, look at this thing. Hey, look at this great person. Hey, look at what Alexa and Brienne are doing. Yeah,
that's pretty neat. Okay, a question for those who are watching, listening. Do you have a personal brand that you're aware of? Because we all do, right?
We all do.
Because Christine has taught us that. But what would you say yours is? And if you don't know, can you ask somebody? Come back to us. Just send a little DM.
I've evolved all sorts of things about. That's the other thing about a personal brand. It's not what you do.
Okay.
It's who you are. And one of the best things about a personal brand is that if people can feel some attachment to that and latch onto that and be on board with that and kind of trust you, it can follow you wherever you go. I first started developing my personal brand while employed at my local newspaper. And
so how did you do that?
Well, it was an interesting time to join a newsroom. I don't have any journalistic training. I'm just good at writing. And so I joined the newsroom at a time when they were first starting to really use social media as an active tool that they were studying. They didn't really have a social media expert yet. They did assign someone in the newsroom to sort of become the expert, but she was learning, building the plane in midair. She was learning as she went, as we all were. And one of the big things was using social media to become more known. The people who were trained in journalism had always heard, you keep yourself out of the story. You're a non-entity, just the facts. And now they were expected to develop Twitter followings, and have Facebook pages. They're like, how do we reconcile this? I took to it naturally. I just kind of got it. And I joined all the local Facebook groups in our coverage area, because I said we need to hear what people are talking about amongst themselves, not just the things that are already news before we even get there. And I was actually in an ad campaign for the paper, which was kind of cool. They took a few newsroom personalities, and I got promoted to engagement editor because I had a knack for this. And so I helped the other journalists in the newsroom, first of all, build their personal brands out a little bit on social media, but also in real life events, both with the aim of being known by the communities that they served and that they were covering, because they want to make sure if something happens, people in that community know who to contact. Or if something happens and they're covering it, people in that community aren't like, who the heck is this? Stomping in. So that was awesome. And I realized I had a knack for that. And I also realized I had a knack for social media. I just kind of got it. And people started asking me to speak. And my reaction at first was, why me? I don't know anything.
I doubt that.
And I said yes anyway.
Good for you. Good.
And so I started speaking, and I realized, most people don't know this stuff. When we get things, when we just kind of swim in it, we assume that everyone has that knowledge, that perspective.
I think they call it curse of knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't. And so I realized how little other people knew. And I was like, maybe I do know something. And then the other way to fight that imposter syndrome was to learn. I said, if I feel like I'm not an expert, how about I become one?
Oh, yes.
And so that wound up, snowballing. And eventually I realized, I'm going to leave my job and start just doing this. And doing this, Christine Gritmon Inc., which started in May 2016, has itself evolved. I started out doing social media for local restaurants. Now I help professionals with their personal branding. It was not a jump. It was a gradual evolution over the years. But the fact is, I do something very different than what I started out doing, and it has worked, and people have followed me along that journey because I kept the core of what I cared about. I cared about social media. I cared about personal branding. I cared about small local businesses, which is a big part of what I've done. I cared about people's stories. I cared about people's stories as a journalist. I care about people's stories as a social media strategist. I care about people's stories as a personal branding strategist. Mm-hmm. And people were able to come along with me because none of what I did was a departure from who I am.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And because what they resonated with and connected with and followed was who I am, you know, I could decide tomorrow that I'm going to go, you know, I don't know, do something totally different. I can't think of it. I'm not feeling very
You're going to be the queen of TikTok tomorrow.
Yeah. And
maybe you already are. I don't know.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm a holdout there. I did just recently go on an Instagram Reels bender. I put together a spreadsheet.
Oh my.
With trending sound bites and what I could do with them. And I sat up here for a few hours and just knocked a bunch out. My drafts folder is actually running low. So tomorrow I'm going to film some more. But I didn't touch any of that until literally a week and a half ago.
That's impressive. That's very impressive.
I'm not doing TikTok still. My audience isn't on TikTok. I don't need a TikTok audience, but Instagram, Reels, I'll do.
Yeah, this is a great comment from Holly. It takes such courage to leave security behind, but there is always joy ahead just waiting for you to take the leap.
Yeah, the big difference is there is less security in being in my own business, especially since I'm not that great at the business running part of it.
I feel that.
I do, but the business running part's totally separate skill set. So it's not as steady as I would like it to be yet, but it feels completely different to be building my own thing, to be building towards something that is all mine, and to know that the build is limitless. If I do more, I will get more, I will be more. I'm not limited by, you know, what my employer's budget is or who else is in line for a promotion. It's all me. The limit is entirely in me. So it feels different.
I imagine, yeah. Well, actually, I know that feeling. But this comment from Brian, Brian says he's not aware of his personal brand and has been hiding behind his business. That is why he is here today.
And your name Photography by Brian. Show people Brian. Show Brian. Yes, I know photographers hate being in front of the camera. They hate it so much. I know.
Yeah, but Brian has a great personality. And yeah, we never see that in the pictures. We just see his beautiful work, which is, you know, that's not nothing, but we need to know him too. But at the same
time, I mean, when I was looking at photographers for my wedding, one of the things, we obviously fell in love with the images that we saw, but one of the big decision makers was we narrowed it down to our top 3. We talked to the top 3. And this couple, oh my God, we're like, we want to be best friends with them. We love these two. They're so cool. And like, we friended them on Facebook and all this stuff. Years later, we hired them for our wedding, of course. And we're like, I'm glad they're just at our wedding. Like, they could be
that's the point, right? Because you don't want someone who makes you uncomfortable at some.
And years later, when we had our first child, we were like, well, we know who's doing the newborn shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. And if any of your friends said, hey, you know a good wedding photographer?
Yeah. I did that. I know a few other people who have used them.
Absolutely. Okay. So we talked about building a personal brand when you're working at a company. So you started doing that when you were employed as a journalist.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how you feel about having a personal brand when you're working at a company. Like, do you feel like that's something that companies should encourage and give people the freedom to do? How do you feel?
Yes. And the thing is, the old idea, the old school way of thinking was that it would be bad from the employer's point of view, because they're like, well, we don't want them leaving. We don't want, them putting themselves out there as possibly someone who people could go grab. And from the employee's perspective, they're like, I'll look less committed to this company. And it's nonsense, because first of all, let's break down the two parts of that. The employer worried that an employee with a strong personal brand will leave. You know what? Then treat them well.
Right.
Value them. Value the things that their personal brand can reflect onto your company. Value the connections that their personal brand will enable them to make, which can then benefit you. And in terms of the employee being like, oh, well, I'll look less loyal to my company, you can simultaneously balance, here's me, and I have a passion for this. I know several people who have strong personal brands, and I totally associated them with their employer at the beginning because they were such a big cheerleader and ambassador for that particular employer. And then they left, and I followed them to their next employer. I didn't stop using their previous employer's product. I just also started using their next employer's product because I knew, liked, and trusted that person. And they were careful not to badmouth their old place.
Of course.
But, they were able to transition that from being, who did that really well? Rob Balasabas. I'm going to name drop here. Rob Balasabas. He used to work for Thinkific, which is an online learning platform. It's a fantastic product. So he was Rob from Thinkific. That was his whole jam. He moved over to TubeBuddy. I use TubeBuddy now. Now he's Rob from TubeBuddy. And it wasn't jarring because he's still Rob. His personality is still what it is. His skill set is still what it is. And one of the biggest parts of his skill set is relationship building. So the fact that he's able to community build means that his community came with him. And I think that was probably one of the big things that made him attractive to TubeBuddy. The fact that he rolled in with a posse.
Yes. And that's a great point. Like you feel like you're maybe taking away somehow from your personal brand or from the work you're doing for your employer, but really it becomes this transferable skill and asset.
And transferable opportunities. You can choose to transfer some of those relationships to your employer. You can make connections to a greater degree than if you were just kind of, worker bee.
Right. Yes. Okay. So I feel like we're ready to get started. Give me some hands up if we're ready to get started.
What have we been doing?
No. I mean, we're ready to get started building our brands, like right this second.
Good.
Yeah.
Like,
we've already had really great stuff. So where would you suggest people start? Because there are just a million options out there, right?
This is going to sound so basic.
Okay. Ready?
Get some good pictures of yourself. It doesn't have to be a professional. The first thing I invested in when I decided to start my own company was a headshot shoot. You don't have to necessarily go with a professional. My friend Meg is still using a picture of her I took outside our old office years ago because the lighting is good. She is just against a brick wall. It's nothing distracting. She looks recognizable and clear, and that's all she needs. So it doesn't have to be a professional, but make sure you have a good, clear, decent quality. That was on my iPhone, but the fact is I used portrait mode. The lighting was good. A good, clear, high quality photograph, ideally more than one, of you, and it has to be current. You do want to update those because if someone meets you out in person or sees you on a live stream and you don't resemble those pictures, that's a problem.
It's an awkward, very awkward.
Awkward. It's like, is that person? I don't know. I'm not going to bother trying to find out. Never mind.
Exactly.
So I would say make sure that you have some pictures of yourself out there that are recognizable, approachable, professional. I will also say get your social media handles sorted. Make sure that you have them, that they are connected with something, and that your profiles are recognizably the same person. Okay. So they don't have to be all identical. Your Twitter banner and your LinkedIn banner and your Facebook cover photo, it doesn't all have to be identical, though the profile images ideally should be, whether that's a headshot or a logo or something. Okay. But I mean, things don't have to be all identical, but they do have to clearly exist in the same world and clearly belong to the same person or brand. So that, again, those compounding brand touches, if someone has seen you in one place, they need to know it's the same you when they see you again. And fill out those profiles. The number of people who have so many blanks in their social media profiles, I'm just like, how? Why? every single piece of information that they ask you for when filling out your profile is another way people can find you.
Yeah.
And it's free.
Yes. Yes. Good stuff.
Yeah. So I'd say start with those places. You know, have a picture, set up your profiles properly so that it's recognizable. But then another place that I'd go, certainly at the very beginning, is what do you care about and what do you want people to associate with you? And where's the overlap between those things? Because that needs to be kind of the core of what you put out there. You need to sort of have only a limited number of kind of buckets that you pull from if you're posting things professionally, because you want to make sure that people aren't like, oh God, this person's all over the place. They won't know what to associate with you. They won't know what's in your brand. Whereas if you kind of stick to a handful of different lanes, for most things, you can go crazy with like 10 to 20% of it, but like 80 to 90% should really be within
brand.
Kind of predetermined ideas of what people should be following you for. People should know what to expect when they click follow.
Yeah. So you have done this to an incredible degree. I just can start typing in CHR and this picture pops up and there's so much red and your dark hair. And I know it's you before, you know. So how important is that visual branding? Because I know like my friend Jeff C, our friend Jeff C, he can probably never shave his beard.
No, he can't.
He can't.
Well, at the same time, I had some friends warn me because I had bright red in my hair for the past several years, since about less than a year into my business. I got the bright red hair and I was just kind of sick of it. And I had some people say, no, you can't get rid of the red hair. It's your brand. And I was like, no, I'm my brand.
Okay.
And if I want to change my hair, I can. Because I have more, first of all, I have more visually going on than my hair. I have the red background, I have the red lipstick, I have the red hair. So, I mean, there's no shortage of the red. It's not like I changed to green. But regardless, you know, the brand follows the person. But regarding the visuals, I like having a brand guide. I think that's generally a good thing to have. In my case, not all brand guides need to employ the same elements. My brand is very heavily visual. Not everyone will be as heavily visual as mine is. Mine's heavily visual because I'm heavily visual. I have graphic design training. I like doing these things. I do all of my graphic design and people comment on it. And I'm like, yes. But so in my case, I have a specific color. At my whole first year in business, it was random shades of red. It was leaning more toward burgundy in about a year. And I'm like, nope.
Hex Do you know that hex code?
Yeah, CC0000.
Oh, that's lovely.
I might get a tattoo of it. We'll see.
And it starts with C. That's perfect. Okay.
It's not CG, but it's CC0000. It's a very easy shade of red to find.
It's lovely.
Which is nice. Lovely. So I have my shade of red. Yeah. I have my fonts. I changed my fonts last August.
Okay, why?
But it was an evolution, not a complete changeover. One of my previous kind of feature font was Lobster, and everyone's using Lobster.
Yeah,
Lobster's everywhere. But I liked the old time script, and then I also had you know, for other stuff, I used whatever serif font I could find. Sometimes it was Dido, Didot, whatever, but it kind of varied. Now, I take a step back from things in August to re-strategize, and last August was about hundreds and hundreds of font combinations before I landed on the way I found Thirsty Soft, which is my new retro script. I was watching the Netflix series, A Series of Unfortunate Events. And there's a character named Carmelita Spatz. She's an insufferable brat. And she had a pageant sash on that said False Spring Queen. And I got a screenshot of that and I uploaded it to What Font.
Oh, you're kidding.
And it was Thirsty. So I happen to like Thirsty Soft better. So I bought the font. And then I have a semi-retro, again, feeling block font that I think looks good with it called Langdon. So I purchased that as well. And for body copy, I'm fine going with something more common for body copy. A lot of times I use Lato or Lato. I don't know. And it's easy to find.
Whatever's readable. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so my feature font that I don't use for things that are reading intensive, but for like a headline or something is Thirsty. And my logo, I redesigned my logo too. I used to never use my logo. It was a big serifed CG in lowercase. I never used it.
Okay.
Now it's Christine Gritmon, and it is in Thirsty, but it is modified to more closely resemble my actual signature.
Oh,
the capital
cool.
G in Gritmon is totally different, but I always, the E in Christine, I take the end of the E and I cross my T with it. That's my real signature. Okay. So we just did that in Photoshop with Thirsty, and we did the same with the N of the Gritmon crossing the T in Gritmon, and
there it is. Okay, we're going to have to check that out. We have a thought here, kind of a question from Jana. She gets confused with branding. Should people remember us or our product? What do you say?
I would say if you are selling a product, you need both. I think that the person should develop influence in service of the product. So I think that you should have two. I actually just went through this with a client literally yesterday. He was like, I might just change my personal Instagram over to my brand Instagram. And I said, you know what? Include both. The brand Instagram, we're going to do all sorts of things with, but it's really going to focus on what he's selling, and it's going to focus on building community around that product and those services and the lifestyle that it's creating in people's heads that's going to attract people who are going to use those products and services. I said, on yours, start developing your influence as that type of person. And then you can use your personal account to further draw people to the professional account for your products and services. So in your case, Jana, I'm not sure what you sell, but I would say that the account for your product should be mostly about your product, though I would introduce yourself to your people. I would do, every handful of posts or so, I'd have a post where you actually show yourself, give someone a glimpse of the person whose dreams they're helping to support, because that is the biggest superpower small businesses have. We don't feel that way when we're shopping at Target. We feel good about ourselves when we're supporting a person just like ourselves and our neighbors who had a dream. So let them see who they're supporting. Let them see your passion for what it is that you do every handful of posts. But generally speaking, that account is for what people can actually buy, but also have your own where people see a little more behind the scenes. People see a little more of you like making the stuff, or of, hey, I'm a mom. Here's my life. It gives people something a little more to latch onto, and it can reflect well upon your product.
Okay. So if you're out there listening and you're wondering anything about personal branding, drop that right in the comments. We're gonna cover those. Okay. So I'm building a personal brand. I'm taking control of it, trying to solidify it. How can I then leverage it in a way that doesn't feel like you were saying? Like sometimes we feel like maybe it's a little selfish. Yeah. How do we do it? Yeah. How do we feel good about it?
By focusing on helping, by focusing on the people you're talking to, by actually talking with them. This is really key. A lot of people get stressed out by social media. They say, you know what? I got into this to do what I do. I don't feel like being on social media all the time. What's the bare minimum? What can I post? Facebook's pay to play. They're not going to show my stuff to anybody unless I, social media. Marketers crashed the party. Social media started out as people talking to people, as people connecting with people in their world, and eventually people who would become part of their world based on commonalities. Marketers are crashing the party.
Yes, we always do.
Stomp in there and start selling. To me, one of the best things about social media is it is free market research. It's incredible. Social listening, just being a part of those conversations. You can learn so much about the people who you purport to want to help. So see that, listen to what their concerns are, listen to what they're talking about, be part of the conversations. Don't only first of all, never post something and then not reply to the replies. That's the bare minimum. If people reply to something you posted, if people care enough to comment, engage in conversation there at the very least. But on top of that, you want to go to where other people are, and you don't want to go to someone else's social media platform, like a competitor or something, and stomp in and be like, hey, buy my stuff. No.
Yes, no.
But if that's where your audience is hanging out, become part of that audience. Become part of it. Engage in conversations. Eventually someone's going to click over to you, and then they'll find out who you are and what you do and probably start a closer conversation with you. But you're not going to get anywhere if you just sit back and wait to be found and only speak with the people who have already found you. You need to use social media socially, engage as a human being, and really care about listening more than you speak, about responding more than you start, about starting conversations with the things that you do put out there. Ideally, it can't just be, look at my thing, look at my thing, look at my thing, buy it. No, like, talk to people about their needs. It's incredible. I see Brian said one of his most popular Instagram posts was a self-portrait.
Brian,
That's
not surprising. It's not surprising.
I have to say, I kind of hate that my Instagram is all pictures of me at this point, but that is a data-driven decision. Yep. Because anytime ever that I've ever looked at my Instagram analytics, always the pictures of me.
I know.
People don't care about the other stuff. And so eventually I said, you know what? Why don't I just do that?
I know. Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't love that it's all pictures of me and Brian. I wouldn't say it should. I think your feed full of beautiful brides is a great thing, but pop in there every now and then, introduce yourself, because the fact is people are following you.
Yes, that's right.
You're what they're there for.
Okay.
Product.
Yeah. So it's been a lot about Brian, and I want to keep it there for a minute because I want to talk about what it's like when someone comes to you as a potential client and says, hey, I know I need to build my brand because it will build my business.
Yeah.
And open up all kinds of possibilities for me. Like, what does that look like to work with you on a brand?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm part therapist. I want to get to what's holding them back.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's something that we need to stretch. Sometimes it's a comfort zone we want to break them out of. But at the same time, not everything needs to be broken out of. Not everyone needs to do everything. If they really have something that they're incredibly reluctant to do, and they can succeed without doing that thing, I'm not going to give them a strategy that hinges upon that thing they're going to hate doing, because they're not going to do it. Or they're not going to do it well, or they're not going to maintain it. So I focus on getting to their pain points, their discomfort points, and which ones I want to use a strategic line of questioning to get through. Okay. Versus which ones I want to reassure them, I'm not actually going to stomp on that pain point. I'm going to respect that pain point. I'm listening to you. I understand you. It is not weird or wrong that you have that pain point. I get it. I'm going to give you permission to not deal with that right now. And that people love that because
it's
very vulnerable work. Yeah. It's very vulnerable work. And I respect that. And if we don't have trust, I'm not going to be able to get people out of their comfort zone.
Okay. Do you ever find that through working with you, people come back to that blockage and say, hey, I'm ready to deal with this now? Like, do you ever see that kind of progression?
Yes. Not a ton, but yeah, I have. I think what it's more about is that people realize their blockage isn't what they thought it was.
Oh.
I know some people who were, avowed Luddites. They're like, I am not tech savvy. I don't like social media, but I'm being dragged kicking and screaming because I know it'll help my business. And I've gotten them to fall in love with like Instagram or something. They still don't want to touch Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay. I tell them they have to a little bit, but suddenly they love Instagram or they love blogging or they're popping on video every now and then and showing their face. I'm like, I wasn't even, you know what? You're right, actually, because I'm like, I wasn't even pushing you to do that. But then once they realized that other social media stuff was working, they feel a little more trust that they can take that additional step forward. So actually, I take it back. I have seen that. I've seen people do that with a video, especially. People, when I give them permission to not do video, sometimes when they see how well other things are working, they will say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get on video because I know it'll help. And then it goes,
that must be very satisfying for you.
It's very satisfying for me.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you've kind of figured out our blockers. You've gotten us a little bit out of our comfort zone, but not pushed us too much. That's great. So you're doing it. You're doing the thing. And Jana wants to know what happens if you're doing it and people don't engage.
So first of all, there will always be the case that it can be very discouraging because it feels like, oh, I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. Why am I not getting engagement? Couple things. First of all, make sure that you actually are paying attention to what isn't working and trying to draw lessons from those things, observations from those things to inform your strategy going forward. Don't just keep trying to put the same thing out there that isn't working and be like, but I'm being consistent. You also need to take into account that part of the point of putting things out there, part of the point of not posting just once a month is you want to get data. The more you put out there, the more data you get back about what your audience does and doesn't want. And your audience is unique. Don't listen to any of the broad strokes. This is the best time of day for everyone to post on Instagram. No, your audience is your audience. So you need to give them things to respond to engage with in order to get that data back of what they want. Another thing that I will say is that there are lurkers. There are plenty of lurkers. And those lurkers do sometimes buy. I have had a lot of people who I had no idea saw my stuff at all. And then I get a lot of, hey, long-time listener, first-time caller, here's my money.
Lovely.
Yeah, so sometimes you're developing that relationship without even being aware that you're developing a relationship.
That's a great point.
So that happens. So I will say engagement is not everything. And the third thing I will say about getting engagement is that numbers are not what matters. It is not quantity, it is quality. Are the people who are engaging people who could actually buy from you? Because if you have, 2 comments on a post, but they're both from people who could buy from you, that's worth a lot more than 30 comments on a post of people just saying nice, who happened across your profile and are never going to buy from you. So it is quality, not quantity. Unless your job is social media influencer or content creator, you really need to look at what actually matters. What matters more than people engaging with your content is good. It helps because it helps it be seen by more people. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but I will say look at the big picture of what you're actually trying to do. What you're actually trying to do is run your business. So what matters more than how much engagement you're getting, how much traction you're getting, how many followers you have, what matters a lot more is, are some of the right people seeing it? Is one of the right people seeing it?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And Jana says that's happened to her. People who.
Yeah. Plenty of people do that. I heard from someone I had not talked to since high school, which was a while ago. I don't know how she found me. I'm very findable. I'm very easy to find. I shouldn't say that, but I'm not sure how she thought to look me up. But by the time she contacted me, she was ready to hire. I did not have to do any convincing. It went from first contact to, money in my bank account, which was fantastic. So you don't really know who's listening. And it's not always an indicator. It's kind of like when people say yes or no to a Facebook event. It's no indicator of how many people are showing up.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. So if you're looking at the whole spectrum of marketing, let's say you're building a business, there's so much you can do. You can do content marketing, you can do advertising, so much. Yeah. Where does branding, like a personal brand, fit into the mix, do you think?
It's the beginning of all of it. Because if you want your content strategy to be successful, it has to be building relationships. It has to be building towards that know, like, and trust. And the way you do that is with a solid sense of who your brand is talking to, what your brand stands for, what's recognizable about your brand. That all has to be considered and thought out before you put anything out there. So I would say branding is part of literally all of it and is going to be the core of any of it if it is ultimately to be successful. Maybe you're not even super into social media. Maybe you're a blogger. Straight up, you're a blogger. I don't know of any bloggers who don't use social media to drive traffic to their blogs, but let's say you're relying on just like good SEO, whatever. You still got a brand because people need to know if they've seen your blog before. People want to get a sense of who you are and what you're about so that they click on that, you know, RSS subscription thing. Clearly, I don't know much about blogs, but it's not.
They join your email list. Yeah.
Like it's not just for social media. It's not just for specific branding channels. Having a personal brand is all about, again, putting and defining that version of you that lives in other people's heads so that they can know, like, and trust you. And that works for all of it. And that needs to be the basis of your strategy for all of it.
Okay. All right. This is the last chance. If
I'm
you
a
have
little
some
biased.
questions for, are you? No, but I think that makes a lot of sense. The know, like, and trust comes into everything.
I mean, I didn't start out as a personal branding strategist, but the fact is it is where everything always began. It is where my work with just, you know, straight up small business clients began. We always had to get to the root of what they were going to do that was their thing and making sure that we put a sense of them in people's heads. And eventually I'm like, how about I do this?
Yeah. Okay. So if we want to learn more about you, we can go to gritmon.com.
Sure can. Well,
we can on Friday you have a live show. Let's talk about brand. How would we find that again?
So it's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's LinkedIn, it's YouTube, it's Amazon, but it's also, if you go to gritmon.com, one of my submenu things is show.
Okay.
And so you can see all of my episodes. I did 45 episodes in season 1. You can knock through all of them right there. You can see the moments of the highlights of the Twitter chats for each week. And and there's going to be more added to that list next week.
Wonderful. So aside from a new season coming up, is there anything else that you're excited about that you're working on?
I'm shifting my audience a little bit in terms of who I work with. I'm still helping small businesses figure out their social, but I'm really moving more towards helping professionals own their personal brands in a bigger way so that they can establish thought leadership, get more opportunities. I also work with fellow marketers because the fact is the cobbler's children have no shoes. So many people, so many marketers, they know the things to do. They don't do them for themselves. They do them for other people. And so they often, I've had several clients who are marketers now, and I love it because they get it. Right. But they can't quite get there for themselves. So I love helping them because they'll do the things. Yeah. Which is really exciting. So helping professionals of all sorts, you know, realtors, lawyers, artists, whatever you got, helping professionals of all sorts step into their personal brand in a bigger way on social media. And I do this through one-on-one coaching. I have some group training programs that are going to be coming out this fall, and I'm excited about to launch VIP days. I'll put together your whole darn personal brand for you in one day in like a nice hotel suite or something. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be watching for that. Yeah. And it won't be hard to find you. That's for sure. It will not be hard to find me. I will not be quiet about any of it.
Wonderful.
Just look for the red.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I know we were all very excited about this topic. We have a lot to do now. Brian, get in front of that camera.
Do it.
That's right. Or Christine will find you.
Put on a veil if it'll make you feel more
comfortable. That would be so fun. Yes, please do, and send us a picture. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again. Thanks for being here, and thanks you so much
for having me.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.